Who has prayed? All right, two. Thank you, Cassie, for volunteering.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good answer.
I was so happy that I didn't even know that I raised my hand.
Okay.
That's great.
Good.
Dear God, thank you for bringing us all here safely, and please help us to learn more about you.
Amen. All right. Good. Okay. 19 in your book.
Oh, slide 19.
Slide 19.
Back to page 40.
Oh, I have to remind you. Thursday, October 31st. You know what October 31st is?
Halloween.
No. Anybody tell me what church holiday is October 31st?
Someone's birthday.
Reformation Day. Do you know what the significance of Reformation Day is?
No.
You already answered. Who knows the significance of what happened on Reformation Day? Hang on. What?
Did he mail the whatever they were called on the church door?
Yes. 95 theses on the church door. Right?
95 what?
Theses. There's a test on that next week.
Okay,
Yes.
you'll have to re-say that again. Email.
95 theses.
95.
What's that?
TH.
What paper?
How do you spell that?
Here. I'll show you.
Yes.
You know 95, right? It comes between 94 and 96.
I didn't know that.
Okay. THEIS. I think. Thesis. There. Okay. Thesis. All right. Thesis. In Luther's day, if you wanted to have a debate with somebody about some point, some piece of information, all right, you would write up a set of theses, okay, thesi or thesis, okay, in here. They are simply statements, all right, like the St. Louis Cardinals are going to win the World Series. There's a statement. You have statements, okay? And what you would do is you would take them and you would nail them to the church door, okay? It's like, if you're old enough, it's a bulletin board. It's like nowadays putting it on Facebook saying, okay, this is what I think, have at it, guys. Okay? If you name the place, I'll be there, we'll argue on it, okay? And Luther wrote 95 of them, again, the Reformation. 95 theses on the church door. But also, it is the eve of All Saints' Day. All right? But for St. Andrew, Thursday, October 31st is what?
Halloween.
Harvest Festival. Yes, Harvest Festival. Okay. You are invited. Mr. Jim wanted me to twist your arm and invite you to be at the Harvest Festival. Come to the Harvest Festival. If you'd like to come in a God-pleasing costume, that's all right. What we'd have you do is we would have you help the children, the smaller kids. Okay, go around and there's all kinds of stuff going on. It's from 6 to 7:30. And you can come in costume and help them out, and the kids going around and games and toys and food and candy and stuff they got in there. Okay. Does anybody, do we have any, who's been to Camp Sunshine? Who'd like to go back to Camp Sunshine as counselors? Okay. If your hand's up, you probably ought to be here.
I already went there.
For camp or as a counselor? As a counselor. If you want to be a camp counselor, you need to be there.
I already went there. To that
Okay.
thing. I went
To
there.
this?
Yeah.
You need to be there this year and help.
Didn't you help last year? Yeah.
That's fine. You need to be there this year and help too.
That's so I'll do the same.
Okay? It's not a one, camp counselor, it's not a one-shot deal. Camp counselor, we're looking to see what your life represents. Are you living out this faith all the time, not just once, but every day? This is one of those things. All right. Now, I was already on track and saw that and got sidetracked. I was, they were playing a bell piece in there. really fun because we got to play. It was a piece called Give Thanks. Give Thanks to the Grateful Heart. Practicing it for sometime in the future, but it's one of those pieces you get to play real soft. All right? And then you get to pound on the pedals. So it's kind of fun. Yeah. It kind of, exactly. You know, really bring it. All right. Good, take out your frustrations. What do I have here today?
Slide 19.
Slide 19, thank you. Let me back up to 18. All right? Just gets me into what's going on, okay? We talked about, we've got some time here. I can get us in here. Slide 18, pull that out. We talked about this last week. Reminder, this is the time of who?
He's
18 is what king?
Josiah.
Read the book, even. You don't know, can't remember, read the book.
Solomon
Solomon! And Solomon did what?
built the temple.
Okay, that's the good thing he did. What else did he do?
He got the Ark of the Covenant.
It's close. He built the temple and got the Ark of the Covenant in the temple. Okay. What else did he do? That was the good thing he did. What's the bad thing he did?
He built temples for his wives.
Yeah.
Right? Temples for his wife gods? What?
And worship.
Yeah. Began
And he
that
killed
process of worshiping and introducing men. Right? Yes.
And he killed people.
And he killed people. Right? Lots of people. Okay? In here. Alright? Alright. David reigned. Remember we talked about David last week too. David reigned as king for 40 years. And then he died, and Solomon reigned as king for 40 years. And then Solomon died. And I talked briefly about this last week. One of the things that we talked about last week is Solomon built a lot of stuff. He built the temple, he built forts, he built palaces, he built all kinds of things in here. But to do that, he did two things. He would had incredibly high taxes. He taxed people like crazy to help pay for this, okay? The other thing that he did is he would come in and he would say to all of the young people, okay, and you guys would be getting toward that age, he would say to all the young people in the country, all right, you're going to work for me for a certain number of years, whether you like it or not. You're going to work for me, okay? Ladies, you're probably going to work in one of my palaces someplace doing something. You'll work for me doing one of my palaces or cleaning up or doing something. Guys, you get one of two options or maybe both of them. You guys are going to get to help build buildings, these great big buildings, laboring in the hot sun, sun up to sundown, all right? And or you get to go fight in the army. Maybe both.
I'd rather die than work.
Okay? Well, and Solomon would say, Justin, we can arrange that. Okay? We can arrange that. So be careful what you ask for. Alright? That's just what Solomon said. So when Solomon died, alright, what happened was some of the people came to Solomon's son and said, you know, your dad was a good guy, but your dad was kind of a tyrant. He kind of worked us to death, and guys like Justin's dead already because Solomon took care of him. You know, and he sent all our boys off to the soldiers and building stuff, and all our girls have been working like crazy in palaces someplace. You gotta back off on the slavery stuff, and you gotta back off on the taxes. You back off, everything will be cool. Okay? And so Solomon's son sat here and said, what do you think he said?
I'm gonna kill my father.
His father's already dead. He didn't kill his father. We're gonna talk. You hang on to that because we're gonna talk about that.
He wished.
All right?
I'm gonna kill my father.
In here. All right, what do you think he said? It's got a yes or no, right? Take a guess.
No.
No.
Yes.
Oh, you're right. Good guess. No. Okay. He said, forget it.
Negative.
All right? I'm going to be just as hard as my father. And so the people said, this is significant, the people said, what I'm going to do then, these people up north said,
I'm gonna kill them.
fine, we're leaving.
Oh.
And they just left, made their own country.
Goodbye.
Okay? Now, from this point on, there's a distinction and you need to keep up with it. All right? It's not my doing, it's out of the Bible, and we all have to just keep up with it. There is two names that you need to remember, all right? This southern kingdom is called Judah. That's the people that stayed with Solomon's sons. This northern country here, those people that split off, is called Israel. Okay? You just need to keep that in mind. Alright? This is one of those things you just got to learn.
So we circle that.
Yes, I would circle that and write those in there so you know. Okay? Okay? Now, that's going to Solomon. Now, we're going to jump and go to 19. We talked about this last week, right? Okay? 19's about which king? Josiah. What's the good things that Josiah did? Pick up it.
Oh,
Bless you.
right. I'll take
Took
you.
all of the Baal worship things from the temple.
Yeah! That's the big one, right? Remember we talked about that, right? Going back a couple of weeks, we talked about the Baal worship and why we had to talk. We talked last week why we had to talk about it, because Josiah's the guy who threw all that out. Okay? Josiah is king down here in Judah. And he finds out and he cleans the temple. Okay? And he goes in, and not only does he clean the Baal worship out of the temple, they're worshiping Baals around the country. And he eliminates all those, so that's in here the crosses over the cows, okay? He eliminates the Baal worship all around his country. And then he goes up into this country. Remember, they split now, so he's king over here. So he's got to invade Israel here. He goes up into Israel and tears down all the places at the same time. Okay? The Baal worship's up here, too. Okay? Now, what did Josiah do bad?
He didn't.
No.
Did he touch that one thing that wasn't supposed to be touched?
No, that's a good question. Good guess. The ark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one.
No.
Oh.
This is actually a trick question. You didn't do anything bad. But I'm bummed. I know. I say that, okay? Alright? And so Josiah comes. So, I'm going to talk to you about this slide. Okay, this is, now we're at 20. Now we're catching up with where we're at. Okay. This tracks, and just in your comment, you are more accurate than you may have been making a sarcastic comment, but you're probably more accurate about killing fathers than you think you are. Okay, you're just in the wrong country. Okay. So, let me track you down from the top a little bit here. Just walk you down through. Remember what happened when we talked about the Exodus and they came over in the Exodus? As they came over in the Exodus, went through the Promised Land and came after 40 years, came through the Jordan River. And they had those time of the Judges. We talked about the time of the Judges, right? And I said, if you really want to read bloody stuff, go read the book of Judges, because there's all kinds of blood and guts in the book of Judges, okay? And then we talked about the kings last week, okay? And how the people said that they wanted a king, right? And who was supposed to be king?
God.
God, all right? They said they wanted a king. So God put who on the throne?
Saul.
Saul, right? Good or bad?
Bad.
Yeah, pretty stinky.
That was a very negative thing.
Right, okay. And then God raises up David, okay? David's king. Talked about David. David's a good king or a bad king?
Bad. Goodish.
Good. All right? That was our chocolate. I'm supposed to get my chocolate today.
I want
When you guys
chocolate.
see Matthew tomorrow, you go to school with him, you tell
We don't
him.
have school tomorrow.
What's that?
We don't have school
Why
tomorrow.
not?
We don't have school until Monday.
Well,
We
you're
have half a
lucky.
day.
I gotta go to
We have
work.
a
Do you have to
full
go to
day
work?
tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta go to work.
School.
I have to
I
go
already
Monday,
had
but
spring
spring
break, so.
I have
Not
half a
right.
day.
We're gonna be off Friday.
All right.
I already had
Oh,
school.
wait.
So next Monday, when you see Matthew.
Somebody's on- somebody's friends with him on Facebook. You message him for me
Does he
tonight.
have this one?
All right. So David was a good king, right? He did stuff. We just talked about Solomon. Okay. Was Solomon a good king or a bad king?
Bad king.
He was both.
He was both.
He had his moments.
Right. He had his moments good and
That
bad.
was me.
But what the Bible calls him a good king. Okay. Even though he did some stuff wrong.
In the temple.
Okay. Well, not Solomon, the other kings. Let me talk about that later. Okay. All right. Solomon built the temple. He didn't put the Baal worship in the temple. Solomon built the temple. Okay. Despite the fact that Solomon did some stuff wrong in here, God calls Solomon a good king. Okay? Now that's important because what happens, all right, is what happens after Solomon, we talked about when the country's divided. Okay? The northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. All right? So let me talk about the northern kingdom of Israel first. All right? They had a guy on the throne by the name of Jeroboam. All right? Now, Jeroboam sits up here, and Jeroboam becomes king over the northern half of the country, right? Okay. And so Jeroboam comes in and establishes his kingdom and stuff, and sits here. And what's by now you probably know the answer to this question. I'm going to trust you guys do. What's the one thing that would make God the maddest about his people? Right? Is?
Not following his word.
No, more specific.
Have a good
Turn your back on God.
What's that?
Baal worshiping in the temple.
Well, Baal worship in the temple, but backing up a little bit, right? It's right? Yeah.
Worshiping other gods.
Which are
Fake.
the Baals. Right. I'm going to make you use that word and jar that in your head. Okay? You were right. You had to be specific. Backing it up. Okay? It's not just in the temple, although that made God mad. That made him furious. Okay? But Baal worship in general made him mad. Okay? So that's what made God mad, remember? So, Jeroboam sets up his country. What's the first thing you think, one of the first things he did?
Stop.
What's the one thing guaranteed to make God mad right off the top?
Baals.
Worship Baals,
And thank you. Started off worshiping the Baals.
Impeach.
All right? That's what Jeroboam starts. Very beginning of this, he sits there and he sets up, okay, we're going to start worshiping the Baals. Okay? And so Jeroboam is king for a while, and he dies a natural death, and his son Nadab becomes king, and he's king till about 901, and guess what happens to Nadab?
He gets assassinated by his successor.
Exactly.
It's
It's okay, it's perfectly legit to look. Okay, that's why you give it to you, right? He's assassinated. He is killed by a guy by the name of Baasha. All right? Now, hang on. Okay, remember there was a promise here that God made. Remember the promise God gave to David, one of the promises God gave to David. A son of yours will always be on the throne, right?
Yes.
Baasha is not a son of Nadab. So what the colors mean here is that Jeroboam is king, his son becomes king, his son is assassinated by somebody entirely different, And now we've got a new family who's now king. That's the change in colors, okay? Not going well already, okay? And this goes down, you sit down here and you see down through all these names on the side here, on this Israel side, every person you see with this is a dagger, by a dagger gets assassinated. Okay? The common way of succession in the country of Israel, especially in the later years, was by
Daggers.
assassination. In the United States, we have things called elections. Country of Israel, they have something called assassinations. Okay? In here. All right? If you were a king and you were Israel in this time period, the answer is yes. Okay? Now, oh, by the way, all right? You ladies think you're off the hook?
What?
You guys ladies think you may be off the hook here on this assassination thing?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Because if they're coming in Basha, or we'll say this guy Yehu assassinates Jeroboam here, Jehoram, okay? He's coming in, he's going to assassinate Joram right there, all right? After he assassinates Jehoram, guess who's next?
His wife?
And?
Well, he's
daughter.
judgmental. Sorry, that's all I
So-
can say.
So, hang on. So you think that, now, with just a little bit you know, and you actually know a lot more than you think you do already, in here, what's God's judgment going to be on all these kings?
That they're
bad.
really bad.
Exactly. Okay? Because remember we talked about how we talked about how God calls David a good king, and I said last week, all the kings are judged based on David. All right? And Solomon's a good king. Solomon is judged based on David, although he doesn't measure up to David, he's still called a good king. All these kings the Bible will talk about, they'll sit here and they'll say something in here. He didn't walk in the ways of his father David. Which basically means this, okay? He didn't listen to what God's saying. He didn't do what David did. What did David do? Worship who?
The veils.
No.
Oh, God.
No, not in God. He worshipped
God.
God. Who?
God.
Yahweh, right. And only Yahweh. He sits there and says, all these kings, they didn't do what David did. Okay? Now, all these kings are given judgment. Now, I'll stop here. I got here, and here, and back over here. Yes?
Okay, so you know how they're all like getting assassinated and all that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, did any of them like they were going to assassinate someone, but then they stop them and kill them?
If, like, somebody's plotting to assassinate, and the guy catches on, kills, I'm sure that happened because it's kind of like, you know, they're dictators and they're bloodthirsty, okay? You got an enemy, right? You're an absolute desperate dictator, right? You got an enemy, what are you going to do?
Kill them.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Hang on.
When they assassinate the people, isn't it killing God too? Because I mean, isn't God the best?
So what do you think the answer to your question is?
C? Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. You guys are all of a sudden catching on here.
Yeah.
Okay? This is important because hang on to these things. Okay, Justin.
Two things. Number one,
Sure.
I bet half the people on here should have been murdered. And number two, why isn't David on if he was a king?
Well, David's
David's up there.
at the top.
Oh!
David's before the split. Okay?
Tribal.
Right. So, the closer we get, and we're going to talk about that, may get into a little bit tonight. Definitely next week. All right? As they're getting down toward bottom in here, starting down in this time period right here. Okay? Starting right in here. God starts sending what he calls prophets. Prophets are like pastors. Prophets are people who speak to the people. God starts sending prophets to the people of Israel and starts telling them, all right, hey, guys, remember that little thing called the covenant? right? Remember that little thing called the Exodus and bringing out of Egypt, and that little thing called the covenant in here, and that little thing how you said you were promising to do these things? Right? The prophets are saying, you're not doing those. And there's going to be consequences if you don't do that. Alright? There's going to be consequences. And you're not going to like the consequences, right? Did your parents ever told you that?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
More than you.
No.
Mine did too, so it's okay.
No.
But all our parents did that. It's a parent thing. You learn it in Parenting 101. Okay. Young man, you're not going to like it.
Uh-oh.
Right? Yeah, it's usually prefaced by your full name, right? They start throwing in the middle name and all parents start throwing in the middle names, you know.
I'm sorry, don't do that. They just,
I don't know what they did. They just
I
they have their own way.
It would take.
Yeah. They have their ways. Yeah. That's why they give middle names. That's why Germans used to give two middle names. Okay. Right. Good German families used to give all the boys two middle names. Okay.
That's not right.
Well, it was just the way that was the custom they did. Right. So if you had two middle names in here, they said you could always tell how in trouble you were, because if you were in trouble, they'd use one of your middle names. If you were in real big trouble, they'd use both your middle names. It's like when you use both your middle names, you just give up, go to your room, you're grounded, you'll find out how long later. Alright? Okay, so what happens is the prophets start coming in at this time period saying there's these consequences, and they keep ignoring. And so what happens here is that there's all these wars going on at the same time here. What happens is God sends a country called Syria. All right? It calls,
sounds like Syria.
all right, in here, sends to the nation of Israel, and they come in, and then they destroy the kingdom of Israel in battle. When I say they destroy it, I mean they destroy it.
It is no longer there.
Right. Because what they do, all right, they'll sit here and they'll say, they did this. They were really nasty about things, okay? They came in here and they said, okay, in 721 they'd come in and they destroyed the nation of Israel. Okay, all these guys over here, you're going to love this, guys. I'll talk to the girls first. All right, all you guys over here, what they would do, all you all are slaves. Yeah. In this situation, y'all would be slaves, okay? Now, what they probably do is they probably take you to different locations all around their empire. Okay? Away from your families, by the way. Okay? You ladies got a 50-50 chance of living. Okay? Yeah, because of age. You know, these ladies here got a 50-50 chance of living. Okay, you guys would live. You'd go be slaves or harem girls or something.
So we would have a toothbrush
Okay?
and a floor.
In here. Probably not even that. Now you guys over here. What's that? No. You guys over here in this scenario, what's going to happen? What they're going to do to you guys?
We're gonna work.
You guys are dead.
Bye.
Yeah. You guys are dead.
At least we're not slaves.
Okay. They're just gonna kill you. In very nasty, horrible ways, and I'm not gonna strike you. Okay. All right.
That's not right.
Now,
Oh, you guys are slaves.
jump over to the Jewish side. Okay. Remember this. Okay. Now back up with me. Back up to the time at the very top up here. Okay. In here, back up to the very top, down on the Judah side. Okay. This is at the bottom side. These are the sons of David. All right. These are the successors of David. You had Solomon come in. He was a son of David. Then Rehoboam was right here. Was David's grandson. And then The next one was his great-grandson and on down in here. It's just a successive line of down in through here, okay? So, in here. Now notice between the two right here, this side over here, we talked about different families, okay? Remember that promise to David, son of yours? This line through the nation of Judah continued on. It's that one family going in here. God was fulfilling that promise down here through this, keep raising up sons of David. Okay? Now, the other thing you need to know in here is you're going down through in here, all right, is that they said here, and notice that there are check marks. Some of these guys don't have check marks. Some of these guys were really bad. Okay? Sorry, it was really bad. And some of them, like our friend Josiah here, have check marks. Okay?
Yeah.
Check mark means what?
Really good.
Yeah!
He's a good child.
And they said here, you read down through here, they said here, like these two guys right here, okay? Ahaz was one of the worst kings Judah had. And so when it talks about his death, it'd say, he didn't walk in the ways of his father David. Which meant he was a bad king. All right? And then they talked about Hezekiah and the things that Hezekiah did. It talks about Hezekiah dying. And it says something like this. Hezekiah did not walk in the ways of his father Ahaz. He walked in the ways of his father David. Okay? The kings are always compared back to David, because David never did what? Worship the Baals. Okay, hang on. All right. They're coming down through here. All right. And so you see some of the people in here, check marks, there were good kings. There was some that were pretty bad, but there were good kings coming down through here. Now, if you notice down in through here, there are some X's in here, okay? Okay. Some of the people, some of these kings were assassinated. Now, but there's a difference between Israel and here. Some of the people that were kings were assassinated, all the kings that were assassinated over here were assassinated by the person who wanted to be king. You with me?
Right.
Okay, you guys got it? Wanted to be king, okay? So, you know, Baasha wanted to be king, so he basically assassinated the guy in front of him, okay? Over here, the kings are assassinated. It says that this guy right here was assassinated. He was assassinated by the people. Now, there's various different reasons for that, but one of the things that it says it's different in here is, notice when the guy was assassinated, they put one of his sons on the throne. They kept that line of David. Okay? So there's two things I want you to take out of this. One, it's this line of David, and two, is that there were good kings in here. And we talked about the main one, right? Josiah. All right? Now, but there was a string of going down through here, is there was a lot more of the kings that weren't following, worshiping the Baals. Okay? All right? Because you notice right here, Josiah was a good king, and Josiah said he cleaned up and eliminated all the Baal worship and stuff. But notice, none of the kings after Josiah are given a check mark.
Where's Josiah? There he is.
Right here at the bottom. Okay? Because what God starts saying, clear up here. Okay? Is God starts saying the same thing to his people here over at Judah. He sits here and he says, hey, you know that little thing called the Exodus? You know that little thing called the covenant? You know that little thing called the covenant that you said you were going to do, that you weren't going to worship the Baals? You were going to worship who? Right? Me, God. Okay? You're not doing, God says, would tell these on Judah's side, you're not doing that. And if you're not going to do that, if you're going to continue like you are, there's consequences. Okay? There's consequences. And came in and they kept doing it, and in 587, there's several of them, but in 587, a country called Babylon came in, and Babylon basically destroyed the country. All right. And when they destroyed the country, they did a couple of things. I want to talk about that here. Let me talk about that. I'll talk about it again here. But I'll talk about it. Okay, remember what I talked about when they destroyed Samaria over here? All right. All the girls here got taken into slavery someplace. Okay. Ladies, 50-50. Guys?
We know what happened.
Yeah, okay. All right? When Babylon came in and destroyed the country and took them in captivity, okay? What Babylon did? No, actually they didn't. Some of the soldiers died, okay? What they basically did is they basically said, okay, we're going to take all of you.
And kill you.
No, we're going to take all of you and we're going to move you to Babylon. No.
That is like slaves on the
Right. Well, you're going to be sort of slaves, and you're going to go off and you're going to live in Babylon. And you're going to pay taxes to us, and you're going to do what we tell you to do. You know, but there's going to be a degree of freedom. It's not going to be like, you know, your buddies over here on the northern side here. You know, you're not home and you're not at your house and you're not doing these things, but you know you're alive. You know, the girls, you're not harem girls. Sorry. Okay.
Not what?
You're not harem girls. I'll let somebody else explain that to you. What that means. Okay.
No,
All right. In here. All right. We're gonna take you off. It's not like home. It's not like you're doing everything, but you're all alive. You're all got probably decent jobs someplace. You're all working, making an honest living. You're all doing these things. Okay. So you're in captivity, but it's like what's going through their minds as they're going down through here. In here, it could be a lot worse. We could be living. We could have been living up north. Okay. Right. Now I got you thoroughly confused. 21.
I do wonder why God gave approval to a king, why somebody was trying to, or did assassinate him. Maybe jealousy.
You know, it's a good question. What do you think the answer is?
Power struggle.
Yeah. Guess you the question? We're playing Goo Eyes across the room. That's what we're doing. Okay. Yeah. This is the face right before his parents use your middle name.
Don't look at me.
Well, I see Google Eyes and I see Goo Eyes, and I don't know what's going on. All right, but you can either stop or you can leave. Okay. Thank you. Okay. You want to have fun? Have fun. Okay. But not while you're wasting my time. Got it? Okay. I'm expecting. This is the class I talked to you earlier. Okay. This is the same course that I teach adults. All right. I teach it to you because I expect you to act like adults and be adults and learn like adults. If you can't do that, you can go back down to Mr. Jim in the 6th grade class. And do 6th grade over. Got it? Thank you. Okay. All right. This is the next slide, 21. Okay. This talks about the prophets. Let me get my notes up here. Okay. What I want you to do is, where was my? Okay. All right. You talk about this, and I gotta do a little catch up. Okay. Okay, let's get sidetracked. All right. This is talking about the prophets. A little bit what we've already talked about here in this story. Okay. Both in the northern kingdom and in the southern kingdom. In here. All right. This, our friend right here, is a prophet. And there's prophets. There's Ezekiel, Isaiah, Jeremiah, those things. There's all kinds of prophets going in here. Okay. They have names in the Bibles, and you've learned all those names, right? Everybody learned the book of the Bible, right? Those are all those are the ones you can ever remember after Psalms. Those are all prophets' names. Okay. And the prophet gave warnings. Because if you remember back the covenant, when they said, we talked about it. It says what God said here is that there's going to be, if you don't follow this covenant, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, there's going to be consequences. Right? So what they said here and they said is there's going to be consequences. And it said those consequences were this. Alright? The prophet said there's 3 countries that are going to come in and do. There's a country called the Assyrians up here. In their head place is Nineveh. And they're going to come in and they're going to come down and destroy the northern kingdom of Israel. And there's these people called the Babylonians. And they're going to come in and they're going to destroy the southern kingdom of Israel, southern kingdom of Judah. All right? And just to rub your nose in it a little bit, think back at the time of Abraham, okay, the time of the captivity before the Exodus. Who was the country that harassed the Israelites most of all? Oh, you guys know this. Think.
Babylon.
Not Babylon. Back at the Exodus. Remember? Before Moses. Egypt. Right? Remember? They were in captivity in Egypt for 400 years. That one slide, remember? In here? Alright? The prophets say, oh, by the way, just to make your life miserable, the Egyptians are going to come and the Egyptians are going to attack you too. Just because. Okay? Right. Okay? In here. Okay? And they came in and they were going through and, okay? So I'm going to go to the next slide here. So I want to get to I'm moving on here because I want to get to a couple of these, another one of these slides. Okay. In here. Okay. Get you talking a little bit. That's okay. 22. All right. The prophet said, one of the things that I like to point out in here is many times is that we think that the Bible is this nice, neat, clean story. It's okay. The Bible is this nice, neat, clean story. All right? And we get the impression that it's, there's nothing bad in the Bible, there's nothing going wrong in the Bible, and there's all these, it's nice and sterile, and, it's suitable for Lutheran schools, right?
No.
I'm picking on Lutheran schools again. Don't tell your principals. Just go with me here. All right? And you sit here, and by now you've heard the story in here. There's all kinds of stuff in this book. There's all kinds of things, okay? There's stories in here that's not suitable for your eyes to read. I'm not going to tell you where there are. If you want to find them, you can read it and find it yourself. Okay? In here. All right? And then talk to somebody because you'll wonder what the world's going on. Okay? In here. One of the things the Bible does and the prophets does is the prophets get real specific on what people are doing wrong. Okay? As you sit here and sometimes you say you're we've been talking about them breaking the covenant, right? But we had specific on one thing, right? The first specific thing we were talking about they were doing was worshiping the Baals, right? I get very intimidated now. Chewed on every couple people and I get very intimidated. Right? So, worshiping the Baals. Okay? Now, what the Bible also talks about, it gets very specific on the kinds of sins. Okay? Now, use your book if you want to. Let's see if you can't figure it out from the pictures. Okay? First one is
Being drunk.
yeah. Right. Gluttony and drunkenness. Okay? The order of the day is to consume as much food and alcohol as possible. Okay? In here. The second one is
Self-pampering.
self-pampering. That means what?
Oh, you're always buying stuff for yourself and you're selfish.
Yeah, okay. What'd you... I heard something over here. Yeah, don't want to interrupt. Who was it? Somebody? But I heard somebody on the side.
Morgan.
It sounded right.
I forgot what I was saying.
Okay, all right.
Wasting money on jewelry.
Right.
And
Okay,
clothing.
right. Okay. Yeah, and it talks about, the Bible here, it talks about, sorry ladies, in this one it's picking on the ladies. Sorry, I just tell the story. I don't write it. All right? But it's talking about the lady, talks to uses language of the ladies, but it's not letting the guys off the hook. Okay? On this. What it talks about is these ladies going out and they buy the finest of everything, wasting money on clothes and all this fancy stuff because.
Pretty good, pretty good.
Okay? Nothing wrong with having nice things, okay? But when you start, as it says in here, when you start ignoring the poor and you ignoring God, and this becomes your God, okay, becomes your Baal on how many wonderful things you can get, and that's a problem. That's what you're talking about. Okay. Number 3. This one, okay. All right. This symbol is.
Scales and balance.
That's the covenant, okay. So the thing through it is the covenant. The covenant is in the picture is broken. All right. Those are scrolls. What's written on scrolls? Yeah, God's word. That's how they wrote stuff on scrolls. So if these are broken and it has cobwebs over the scrolls, what's it telling you?
No one's touched it for a while.
Thank you.
Ignorance.
All right. See? You guys know this. All right. Number 4 is money. Yeah, okay. All right. Now there's 2 things with the money, okay? Money is the typical thing you hear about money, which I'm not going to hit on you again on here. But the other thing in here, talk about money, is with the mouth in here. There were people, and there were prophets, people that claimed to be God's prophets, claimed to be the pastors in here, that would say what people would pay them to say. Okay? All right? So they basically pay what they would basically say what they wanted, people wanted to hear. Okay? Number 5 is what's that it? Dishonesty in what? Right? Court, law, keep going. Thank you. In sales, right?
Like cheating and...
Right. It's cheating, okay? It's going like this, all right? Is that, I'll pick on the guys over here. Colby sits here and says, he comes to me, I'm a salesman, and he comes and Colby says, or I'll do it this way. I'm coming and I'm needing flour, okay? And so I'm needing flour to take it home and make bread and stuff like that. So I'm taking flour and I come to Colby and I say, Colby, I need 50 pounds of flour. And we sit here and argue back and forth that you do it, okay? Well, 50 pounds of flour is how much?
$50.
About $1,000.
Right? Okay, $1,000. Well, $1,000 is a 2, I'll give you 500.
I should have said million.
Back and forth, we right? We settle on, okay, I'll sell you 50 pounds of flour for $750, right? Sound like a deal?
No.
All right, there we go. Just go with the flow here, all right? All right, so
100.
I pay him $750 for 50 pounds of flour. Okay, so I load up my flour, I go home, and I start working at home, and guess what I realize?
You didn't do 50 pounds?
I didn't get 50 pounds
He
of
gave
flour,
you-
I got
What?
35 pounds of flour.
You made 40 not.
All right. He's clipping me for 15 pounds of flour. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. In here. All right. That's what they're doing in here. And going in here. Okay. All right. You go to the grocery store. Okay. Go to the grocery store. The little scales at the grocery store. They have a little tag on those scales at the grocery store, okay? You go look, okay? Somewhere, look for it, okay? They've got it on the gas pumps too, okay? A little sticker on it, okay? It's a sticker from the state of Missouri, okay? What that sticker of the state of Missouri says, somebody has checked this scale, and if you put 5 pounds of bananas, what it says, if the scale says that's 5 pounds of bananas, guess what? It's going to be 5 pounds of bananas.
Oh,
Somebody's checked this scale to make sure it's not, you know, that it's not
Taking
saying
it.
5 pounds of bananas when it's really only 2.5. Okay. Same thing to do with gas pumps. Okay, the little sticker on the gas pump. Gas pump says in here, it says somebody's checked it out. It says if your parents put 20 gallons. It says your parents put 20 gallons of gas in their gas tank. It means they put 20 gallons of gas in the gas tank. As opposed to 18 or something, and charging you for 20. Okay? That's what they were doing in here. Right? And the last one is 6 is right.
corruption.
Corruption is what's that mean?
The courts wanted money.
Yeah. Right.
I can't picture
The court system and the judges would rule in favor of whoever gave them the biggest bribe.
it. Well, that's stupid. I'll give you $1 million. I'll give you $1,000,001.
Yeah.
There you go. So Justin, why do you think God got so upset?
Because there are people that, because there are people that's stupid. And only $1 is stupid.
Okay. Oh, here. Okay. 23. I can get where I need to be.
This isn't 23.
Yeah.
It's part of 23.
Part of 23. Okay. I'm gonna go through this in pieces here. All right. I want to get to the next one here. What you're talking about. Okay. So the prophets would talk about. 22 was talking about things that individuals did wrong. 23 is talking about what the country did wrong. You with me, the difference? Okay. That's what the country did wrong. It was talking about the country as a whole. All right. And it talks in here, all right. The top part of this, the first part is the people built was saying you were to trust in, the people were to trust in who?
God.
God, okay? And you're trusting God, who for their protection?
God.
Right? It'd say, but what you're doing is you're building these forts and building armies. You're supposed to trust in, God said you're supposed to trust in me. Okay? All right? This is actually probably a better way to understand that. It's a pigeon. Okay. We went down to Mexico. Anybody's ever been to Mexico? Been fishing in Mexico? You guys seen the Goonie birds in Mexico? We call them Goonie birds. Okay. Right. You know what? Can you tell? You know why they call them Goonie birds? You know why they call them Goonie birds?
No.
No. Yeah, they're pretty stupid. You know, they're pretty stupid. That's why they call them Goonie birds. They do pretty stupid stuff. Okay. Basically, what the prophets would call Israel is kind of like calling the Goonie birds. Okay. Well, you're like a stupid bird. Okay. In here. All right. All right. What's that?
I said doves are stupid.
Yeah.
Doves are doves.
Yeah, pigeons are very smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. Right, right. You know smart animals, dumb animals, right?
You don't.
You know a smart animal?
A
Squirrels.
dog.
Right?
That's why they always get hit by cars.
Well, my favorite squirrel story is years ago. I was working for this guy, and the office that we worked in, his office was kind of cantilevered out over this ravine. It was built and cantilevered out like this. And his office was out here. And he had bought this really expensive bird feeder that sat in the window. Okay? Sat in the window like this, and you know, it was situated such that the birds couldn't see in. Okay, but they would actually come in here, and you put bird feed in it from the hatch on the top, and so they'd come in, and in the bird feeder, you'd actually have birds actually in the office, in the bird feeder, okay? But it was cantilevered out over here, okay? It was like, you know, off the ground, it's probably 30 feet off the ground, okay? And from the nearest piece of side on here, it's probably another 30 feet this way, okay? So we moved in and put this thing in here. And John was all happy and stuff that, you know, I got a spot, I got a bird feeder the squirrels can't get into. You know what's coming, right? Yeah, okay, and so we sat in here, and this went on for 6 months or so. And one morning we walked into the office, and there wasn't one squirrel sitting in that bird feeder. There was 2 sitting in the bird feeder, okay? Trying to fit, and we said, okay, how did these squirrels figure out how to get in the bird feeder? So we went outside, okay? And the side of the building was wood siding, okay?
Uh-oh.
What these squirrels had figured out, they knew where to start. And there were foot tracks on the side of the building, okay? Going, you know, if the thing was over here, where's the marker?
There it is.
There, okay. So if the bird was over, you know, the feeder was over here, these squirrels started over here. And they would run up like this, and you could see the first ones that would go like that. And then they started running like this. And you could see the progression of the squirrels figuring this out.
Oh.
How hard they needed to run and what angle they needed to run to be able to land the corner. You could see the foot tracks inside the building. It took them 6 months to figure this out. Exactly.
They're smart.
All right. Digress. Okay. Let me get through this one. All right. Alliances. They were to trust in who? God. But they'd start making alliances and treaties with other nations, saying, okay, if I pay taxes to you, you'll protect me. Okay. We're supposed to be trusting in God. All right. All right. All right. They would make in here, this is talking about, referring to fabulously wealthy houses with fabulously wealthy crops, where it's the rich are exploiting the poor, okay? It's no crime to be rich, okay? It's no sin to be rich. What it is a sin to not use that as God has blessed you. That's what he's talking about, okay? All right? That's what people weren't doing. They weren't helping each other. Their objective was is to get rich and destroy anybody who got in their way. Okay. All right. Talked about the bird. Okay. So God gives in the prophets several images here. Okay. One is that of a leopard. All right. That God is like a leopard waiting to pounce. Everybody's seen the nature videos and see the big cats as they'll, the jaguars, the leopards in the jungles, how they'll slink through the grass. Ever watched a cat chase a mouse? Track a mouse? Same thing, okay? In here, all right? How God is a leopard creeping through the grass, waiting to pounce on his people that's going to come. You just don't know when, okay? Now, I'll give you an illustration of this, where this image is used, okay? In here. Has anybody seen the movie The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? C.S. Lewis, the movie based on the book Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Okay? All right. The tail end of the movie, when they're having the battle scene, right? You've got the forces of the White Witch are on one side, right? And you've got Peter and his Aslan's forces are up on the rock, right? I use this in confirmation retreat, by the way. So when you guys see it at confirmation retreat, you'll know. But as God's forces are lined up, and you have all these various different animals, that you've seen in the story of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? From Narnian animals, okay, in here. You notice who was there? Go home and watch it the next couple of days, okay? Go home and watch it, okay? Because what you will see in there are some of the animals that are lined up, and when they charge, they come charging across. What you see are leopards. It's this image. God is waiting to pounce on his enemies. Those people who aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Okay? It's this image in here. Go home, that's your homework. Okay? Go and watch it.
Homework is to watch TV.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah, he's in the sick bay.
Right. Right? What God says is in here, it sits there and says, is that those fabulously wealthy houses, that center picture in here, those fabulously wealthy houses are going to become ruins. And all those temples and all those wonderful buildings that we built in here, that you built, they're going to become ruins and get destroyed. Those are the images that come, that God gave. I'll throw the whole slide up now so you can see it. Okay? These are the images that God, through the prophets, are giving about his people. And all through this time, God gives these. As I said before, God's not trying to destroy his people. What God wants to do is God wants his people to come back and trust in him. Okay? Now, this is where I'm shooting to get to, all right? Tonight, okay? You guys done good, okay?
We have a quick question.
Yes.
What are the papers?
Those are treaties and alliances that the countries would make treaties with other countries for protection and security and strength and these things when they should have been trusting in God. Okay. All right. So, let me do this because I want to end with a little bit of discussion before we break and stop tonight. Okay. In here, I talked earlier. The Assyrians came in 721 BC, northern kingdom of Israel, took them into captivity into Nineveh and Assyria. Okay, we talked about that. Ladies, you've been scattered all across. Guys, 50-50 here on you guys. You guys, sorry.
Why can't they be killed?
Because you're a guy. And you know why the countries would kill the guys?
Because we're all sons of men.
No, because
You could
You
leave
couldn't fight.
exactly. They don't, and this is the first century, okay? They don't join armies. You do. So we're gonna kill you. Well, you don't have an army against us. They don't care about the rest of it. Okay. All right. 597 and 587, there was two different currencies that came to the southern kingdom right here, and they carted people off into Babylon. That's the one we talked about. They basically took everybody at once. They took them off into Babylon. Okay. 582, they took some went down to Egypt. Okay, that's like the ultimate insult. Remember, we talked about the Exodus a couple 3 weeks ago, how they came out of Egypt. And now they're fleeing back into Egypt for safety. Okay. Which leaves us, there's a question here, okay, that the people had. And this is the question that the people had, that all this left them in here. I'm going to leave that with you. Well, let me do this, okay? Let me do this, because I'm going to do this. Okay. So your homework, right? You guys, your homework? Okay. You don't have to turn this one in, okay? What I want you to do is look out in your homework, okay? Because we talked about, not everybody did their homework. That's okay. Okay. Homework's important, sets us up, okay? Because this is a question. If you're in Jerusalem, if you're going through this, and that chapter we're supposed to read, right, describes what it was like in Jerusalem when Jerusalem was destroyed, okay? This is the question, okay? What do you put on your Facebook page? Well, it's my example, so we're going to pretend you do, okay? What do you put on your Facebook page? What do you say? Okay. What's school like? Okay. How long? Okay. All right. What's that? Yeah, but when was the last time you were in school? Okay, okay, stop and remember. Okay, you're in first century. You're in here. You live in Jerusalem. You live in this country. You've been surrounded by armies, and they've been fighting probably 2 or 3 years now. Not 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 years.
About 14 years.
Okay? All right. So what's school like?
I had high school.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably not having school because, right? It's all the church schools. There's probably nobody left to teach you, okay, in here. What do you think home life was like?
The dads are probably gone.
Yeah, dads are probably gone. Okay. All right. What do you think moms are?
Slaves.
Baby slaves. Okay, how much food do you think you got? Yeah, so where do you think mom's at? Moms? Working. Well, you have to have something to do, right? Probably trying to find something to eat. Okay? Which you guys are probably too, right?
Good night.
Okay. What do you think? What do you think you're feeling?
Hungry.
Hungry?
Tired. Sad.
Yeah. Keep going. All right.
Devastated.
Worried, frustrated, right? Because your question is, right? Because if you're a guy, right, your question is,
Why am I dead?
no, you're not dead, right? Not why am I dead, but take the flip side. What? Yeah. Am I gonna die?
Yes, I am.
Well, depends on where you're at, right? Ladies, what are you worried about? What's your
Am I
question?
gonna ever be free?
Exactly.
Where will I end up?
Exactly.
He's taking
Okay. And moms, what's your question?
will I ever have comfort again? Where's my husband? And
Right. And moms, you guys are thinking of,
Family.
what about my kids? Right? Who cares about me? I can give up a lot of things for my kids. What about my kids? Okay. What do you think you're doing for fun?
Sitting around
There's
doing
no
nothing.
farming.
Talking. Fun?
Farming.
Doing this.
That's the trick question. What do you think you're doing for fun? Do you think there's any fun around?
In our, you could say you're having fun.
In our kind of fun or their kind of
I'm having
Yeah.
Either one.
Because in this kind of fun, this entertains me.
scrubbing their floor.
What's that?
What's
Kind of fun. Their type of fun for us is scrubbing their floor.
Well,
Yes,
At least there today, you don't have to go.
right. You know,
Well, then you'll
it's
be
probably,
like,
right, probably not a whole lot of fun. Okay. All right. Which what I wanted to get you, that's what I wanted you to think about, okay, going in here, all right? This was very dire times for the people at this time. There's a lot of question marks for them, okay? Because they had question marks, you know, am I gonna live? Where am I gonna be? Am I gonna be free? What am I gonna eat? What about my kids? Am I ever gonna have a life?
No.
Okay. All these questions, and some people are asking, and probably answering, just like Justin said, am I ever gonna have a life? No. Okay. In here. You know, or you know, like the ladies ask over here, where am I gonna be in a year from now? What am I gonna be doing? Okay, in here, all right? But there's other questions in here, okay? And I'm gonna leave you with this, because there's other Bible-related story questions that relate to this story that we're gonna pick up as we keep going, okay? Because there's 3 questions, okay? I'm gonna do it from the top down, right? Is that God made a promise to David, right? And that promise was, you remember what it is now? Again? The promise to David was,
his
Land.
will always be.
right, okay, right? But there's no more kings, right?
Oh.
Exactly. So the question is, in here, there's no more kings. So what about this promise? Right? The second one is here,
We're free.
no,
Oh.
right? The second one was back down here in the corner, the temple, right? God said what? God was going to dwell with us in this temple. But now guess what? Where's the temple? Right, gone. Okay? So if God was always going to be with us and always going to be in this temple, and the temple is now gone, right? The question is, right, where's God? That's the bottom one, right? Where's God? Right? Because God, right, we always think that God's going to take care of you. We always think that God's going to watch over you and always going to be with you and always protect you. And these are the things that they connected with here, is that King would always protect us. God would always be with us in the temple. And those things are gone. The question was, where is God? And that, my friends, is the subject for next week.
I'm
Right.
dead.
Right on the mark, right? Just like the TV programs, right? You're right to the point and go!
Right.
Same time next week?
I've been
All right.
it's a cereal.
Okay. All right. You guys did good. All right. This is again. This is tough stuff. Okay. You guys are handling it well. As I said earlier, this is the same stuff I do with adults. Okay. It is deep. Okay. You guys are processing and handling it well. Okay. This is kind of. You know, if other stuff is emotionally hard to deal with, this is kind of the one that's kind of the depressing one, okay? And the depressing one, you know, because we're looking at all this destruction, all this stuff going on, you're going, gee, Pastor, you leave us right in the middle of the, you know, the destruction part, okay? But do your homework, okay? Because if you do your homework in here, that's the, what's that?
A lollipop of knowledge.
And if Matthew comes with my chocolate, we all get chocolate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you do the
All right.
homework?
Yes, for next week.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right. So word of prayer. Can somebody turn off my, before you leave? Somebody, hang on at you. Okay. So on the way out, somebody turn off my video cam for me. Okay. Blessing. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all. Amen.